immigrationquestion.com, your go-to resource for U.S. immigration insights. We provide clear immigration news and information. Our platform provides a network of licensed attorneys who can answer your questions and guide you through the process. From visas to green cards, asylums to citizenships, immigrationquestion.com helps you to network with immigration attorneys so that you can move forward with confidence. Sign up today or download the app. Free registration, limited time offer. Stay tuned. We go live in 30 seconds.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the special edition webinar hosted by immigrationquestion.com, a networking platform and meeting ground where immigrants, families, advocates, and licensed immigration attorneys come together to understand U.S. immigration policies and procedures better. I'm your host, GB Satusa, and today's important discussion is the 2026 USCIS processing breakdown, why cases are slowing again, and what you can do now. For many immigrants and their families, USCIS processing times directly affect work authorization, travel plans, stability, and long-term immigration strategy. In 2026, we are seeing renewed concerns about case slowdowns across multiple categories. Understanding what is causing these delays and what practical steps applicants can take now is essential for reducing stress and avoiding preventable complications. While government processing timelines are outside of an applicant's control, preparation, awareness, and strategic filing decisions can make a meaningful difference. To help us break this down, we are honored to be joined by attorney Tiffney Johnson, an experienced immigration attorney who regularly advises individuals and families navigating USCIS filings and complex case delays. Attorney Johnson, thank you for joining us today. We're always so thrilled to have you with us.
Thanks for having me again.
A quick reminder to our audience. immigrationquestion.com is a public educational and networking platform. The information shared today is for general informational purposes only and does not constitute individualized legal advice. If you are joining us on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, or any other platform, please subscribe and share this session with anyone who may benefit from understanding current USCIS processing trends. Now let's dive right in. Attorney Johnson, what trends are you currently seeing in USCIS processing times across major case types, and how do they compare to previous years?
So I would say compared to previous years, we are seeing just a general slowdown across all categories that are not premium processing. And such as used to when you would send in an RFE response, here's one example, you'd expect a response relatively quickly. We're now seeing those just sit and linger. I-751 green card conditions removals also used to be fairly quick. They are really, really slow right now. Waivers of any kind, which have always had a long wait, have also increased dramatically and extremely slow. And interestingly, I'm also seeing a slowdown even in N400 citizenship, U.S. citizenship applications, which previously seemed to be one of the quickest type of applications.
Yeah. Now, what are the primary factors contributing to slowdowns in 2026?
Okay, I mean, I don't work for USCIS, so I can't say 100% certain, but logically, there are some things that would lead to this kind of slowdown. One thing that I can say probably for sure is the almost near 100% interview rate for adjustments of status, even ones where applicants have maintained an underlying non-immigrant status like F1 or H1B the entire time. So a very, kind of an easier category to adjudicate. Even those are being interviewed at almost 100% rate. And so since that takes officer resources, obviously that's going to lead to a slowdown unless you're hiring and training more officers. And even if you're doing that, they're new. So they're not going to be as educated and experienced as the other officers. The sheer volume of cases, I would believe, is contributing to the slowdown. Many people are filing applications now who may have been in the U.S. for a long time without a status, and they're now seeing that the risk of doing that is way too high. And so even if they put it off for a long time, now they're taking the initiative and finding the resources they need to take those steps to file a case for themselves. Also, of course, the surge of asylum claims that are just in the pipeline are probably slowing things down. The enhanced vetting across many different categories. Also, I believe the increased use and availability of premium processing across all these new categories that can premium process. Surprisingly, I mean, a lot of people do pay for premium processing, but what happens is the more resources on the premium processing, where they would have to give you a refund if they don't meet their, the deadlines. Those are, that's a shifting of resources to those cases and away from cases that are either not premium processed or not eligible for premium processing. Also, just really increased evidentiary requirements that we haven't seen really recently, and that's things like when maintenance of status, they're really wanting a lot more robust evidence to show you have maintained your status before you change or adjust status, even going back, years and years, even after you've had a re-entry, which they're really just doing a lot more to vet that. And all those RFEs would inherently clog up the pipeline of adjudications.
Now, are certain categories experiencing more significant delays than others?
Yes. I-601 waivers, which, as I mentioned, they've always taken time, but they're now listed as having an average wait time of over 3 years. And I know there are people who have been waiting even longer than that. The I-824, which is an application that is often used to move a case from adjustment of status to consular processing. It has other uses, but that's a very common use of it. That is listed as the National Benefits Center cases being at 66 months. And we are definitely seeing delays in those. Asylum's always been slow, and we've heard that the administration was going to try to do some kind of prioritization of recently filed cases to kind of triage the ones that they felt might meet the requirements and ones that clearly wouldn't meet the requirements. But we really I haven't seen it, and the attorneys in my network have not seen that. And H-1Bs, non-premium processed extensions and changes of employment, those also seem to be just very stagnant. And the one thing that's giving people a lot of stress is the very slow notices of receipt for U visas. So when you're filing the U visas are for victims of crimes. This person might be without status for a period of time with no notice of receipt and just waiting on that notice to come in the mail. And those are taking a very long time.
Now, Attorney, how are extended processing times affecting applicants' work authorization, travel permission, and overall immigration status?
Well, since most applicants that are waiting on changes of status or extensions can't travel, these long wait times can definitely make that process very stressful. Conversely, the wait time for consular interviews in many of the non-immigrant categories that aren't just tourist visas are pretty good in most places. And so for some people, that might be a better option for them to actually consular process, and they may have much more security and stability in their ability to travel and work by working with an attorney, of course, to decide if that's best, but considering that option. I'm also, some of my clients, they want to make all these, backup plans. People that can afford to file overlapping cases are wanting to do so that they don't have a break in their ability to work or travel. So clients that have those options and the resources to do it are now choosing that in some cases.
All right. Now, what risks should applicants consider before escalating a delayed case, and when is it appropriate to do so?
Okay, well, firstly, there is a tool on the USCIS website, and if you just Google this tool, you'll find it pretty easily, and it will tell you the USCIS case types, processing times for all the different case types. So you can look up your case type there and see what is the average processing time. This tool also allows you to check your specific case to see if it is eligible to file an inquiry based on it being outside the normal processing times. Now, this is not just not a one-for-one type of ability to check. So your case might be about 60 days past the normal processing time, and in certain case types, the tool will allow you to send what's called an e-service inquiry. But in other categories with much longer wait times, they want it to be way past that average before the tool will allow. So it's not a just clear-cut 60 days. The way the tool works, the algorithm is based on the case type. Okay, so if your case is eligible, you can file an e-service request through this tool, and sometimes that is enough to kind of shake a case loose. I'm also a big fan of the Emma live chat. It's a really good tool to use. You do have to kind of have all your data right in front of you when you get on it to use it, but it's pretty intuitive to use. And if your case is eligible for an inquiry based on the processing times published, you can also go through the Emma live chat and ask, for a status on your case. And even though sometimes they'll just say, they won't give you much information, again, I have seen that kind of shake a case loose before. This is also where you could ask for expedited processing if you have one of the allowed reasons, which I'll discuss a little later for expedited processing. As far as the risks of asking about a delayed case, there's not really a huge risk in doing so, but you may have a higher risk, possibly have a higher risk of an RFE if an officer is actually tasked with adjudicating your case because it's been delayed. And sometimes, especially, you can see that in more complex categories where there's a mountain of evidence they have to go through and they're under a time pressure, kind of like how we see with premium processing.
All right. Now, in cases of extreme delays, what options are available?
Okay, so the Ombudsman's office, actually, I know it was kind of unfunded for a while or unstaffed, but it is actually supposed to be functioning. There is that tool. It is there for you to use, and I have used it in the past pretty successfully. That the Ombudsman is sort of an outside entity that is meant to kind of hold USCIS accountable for customer service, especially in egregious cases of delays or errors. So that if you just Google the USCIS Ombudsman, it'll bring it up and you can submit an online case inquiry on your case. They do require that you show documentation that you've already tried to resolve the problem through the regular channels with USCIS. So it could be good if you're using like the live chat to take a screenshot of what you've done. Or if you've submitted the e-service inquiry, keep that, take a little screenshot of your confirmation so you can document that you've already taken the normal steps. Congressionals, contacting your congressperson is always an option. Like the Ombudsman, though, also neither of those organizations will actually advocate for a certain decision on your case. This is more for the either errors or delay or egregious delays that they can advocate like a review of a case or that a case be something happen with a case, but not a specific approval or disapproval. And if you do have a reason to expedite your case, whether it's very, very delayed or not, you can also use the Emma live chat function to request your expedite. But there are only certain allowed reasons, and so you may want to have an attorney handle it so that the request uses the specific language that includes those allowable reasons. And when I say expedite, that doesn't mean sort of an immediate decision. It just means your case may be adjudicated faster than others. For example, I had a waiver where a petitioner had a very serious health condition, and like I said, the waiver processing was 8 months or something right now, and we got her husband's done in about 8 months. So it's not like an immediate thing, but it was faster, and that was using tools like the ombudsman and just continuous follow up. But it is a very high bar for an expedite. It is a very high bar. And in very extreme cases of egregious delays, you can use what's called the mandamus process, which is a court process. It is quite expensive for the applicant, because you definitely would need an attorney for that. It'd be really difficult to file something like that by yourself. And you need an attorney that really does that as part of their practice. So it can be sort of the last option if nothing else works.
Yeah. Now, looking ahead, what practical steps can immigrants take to proactively prepare filings to reduce the likelihood of RFEs or additional delays under current adjudication trends?
Okay, so this is where sort of do-it-yourself immigration can really be detrimental. Attorneys know how to organize a case, which there are very specific ways that a case has to be organized, or it can literally just be sent back to you in the mail. Things that also need to be included in a case that aren't specifically listed on the USCIS website, but that are part of what is required for the case. And you may not know that because this is your only filing you've ever done, and attorneys do them all the time. Working with an attorney, attorneys also know the most recent RFE trends. So what a good attorney will do is they know that even though certain things aren't required, that they're routinely now seeing RFEs for certain types of evidence. And so they can be proactive and include that in your initial filing, which can save you a significant amount of time because an RFE can really delay your case. And I mean, sometimes it can't be helped, and they are sometimes rather arbitrary, but a good attorney can proactively really try to include the types of evidence that they're seeing requested in recent RFEs, which can change all the time. And if you're working in it with an attorney, you still need to carefully review the forms for accuracy. Don't just assume that everything is correct. You need to look at each line item, make sure each box is checked, because even forms not being filled, things being left blank on forms, totally blank, that are part of what needs to be filled out on a form, or inaccurate information can result in case delays and even mistakes. And so like if your name was spelled wrong and you end up getting your green card with your name spelled wrong, it can take a long time to replace that green card. So you really need to just triple check those forms for accuracy. And also one thing you can do is make sure there's no gaps in showing your maintenance of status. So that's another little area you can do because it's now a very common RFE area. And one kind of simple thing, but make sure all the scans are clearly readable that you have. Make sure, they're not blurry or fuzzy, and make sure that all the signatures you've signed them in ink before they've been scanned. So no digital signatures, and don't also reuse forms that have your signature. Don't just make a copy of a copy or anything like that. Each form needs to be hand signed, even if you're signing like multiple forms for your fees. Don't just sign one and make a copy. Sign each one because they actually look to see if those signatures, look like they're copies.
Thank you so much for those valuable insights, attorney. It's truly been an interesting session so far, eye-opening. Now, for everyone watching, this discussion about USCIS processing delays is not meant to create panic, but to encourage awareness. While applicants cannot control government backlogs, understanding trends, preparing thorough filings, and knowing when to take action can help minimize disruptions. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. ImmigrationQuestion.com is a networking platform where users can ask immigration-related questions at no cost and engage with participating attorneys. We're also thrilled to share that ImmigrationQuestion.com is BBB accredited and ISO certified, reflecting our commitment to transparency, accountability, community education, and security. Now, Attorney Johnson, based on your experience working with applicants facing processing delays, how does ImmigrationQuestion.com help immigrants and immigration attorneys like yourself?
Well, I always advise to stick to reputable sources of information. There are lots of sources of information out there that are just based on rumor and people's individual experiences. And when you can go to a platform like immigration.com, not only can you find articles that are vetted by attorneys, but also you can find an attorney to work with, which in this time of immigration, it is really, really advisable to work with an attorney and not just try to do it on your own.
Thanks so much, Attorney. Now, before we move into our live Q&A, let's tackle this important question. What is the common misconception or one common misconception about USCIS processing delays that you believe applicants should clarify to avoid unnecessary stress or risky decisions?
Well, I mean, one thing is if before you even file to take a look at those processing times, and that will also kind of ease your mind, because although it might not be the answer you want to see, it can help you plan plan your life around knowing approximately when you would expect a decision. Also, knowing what your attorney can and can't do for you to get your case moving. And knowing, like, if your case is still within normal processing times, most attorneys will not continue to talk to USCIS because it's, you can be on the phone for an hour at a time with them and what the answer is going to be. So I think just when your case is within normal processing times, just staying calm. And then if you do get an RFE, just responding as quickly as possible to that and thoroughly as possible to that RFE. But a common misconception sometimes is that attorneys can actually, push a case along when it's still within normal processing times, and they really can't, unless there's a reason for an expedite.
Okay. If you've just joined us, we've been speaking with Attorney Tiffney Johnson on the 2026 USCIS processing breakdown, why cases are slowing again, and what you can do now. We are now moving into the live Q&A session. This is your opportunity to ask and hear general questions and educational insight from a licensed immigration attorney. Please drop your questions in the chat or call us live at 516-703-3483, and we'll take as many as time permits. I heard USCIS is having staffing and budget issues that are slowing down case processing. Is this true?
Well, they definitely are recruiting quite heavily now, so I would assume they do need more staff. But as I mentioned before, it's not just staff, it's that learning to adjudicate immigration cases is very complicated. It takes a long time to get good at it. And so just because they can hire staff doesn't mean that those staff can operate at full capacity of adjudicating and interviewing. That takes time and a lot of training. So even if they can get new staff, they have to train them.
All right. Why does USCIS issue more RFEs now compared to some years ago?
Well, I touched on that a little earlier, but it's partly, of course, driven by the administration's policy of, more thorough vetting of every type of application. So that is something definitely that looks to be driving RFEs. But the other thing we do tend to see, especially with premium processed cases, is what I would call the template RFE. And I think all immigration attorneys out there have seen this. And that seems to be where when USCIS cannot meet a deadline on a premium processed case, especially the cases where you're sending in a big stack of evidence for, an EB2 NIW, a national interest waiver case, or an EB1 extraordinary ability. These require a lot of evidence, and it can be impossible, especially to meet some of those premium processing deadlines, seemingly impossible. Because who knows how many each officer has. So you'll see an RFE where basically it kind of says, you didn't meet any of the criteria and you didn't submit any evidence for any of the criteria. So please submit evidence for all the criteria. That's in general what it says. So those are really frustrating, but it just seems to be that, in my opinion, that they can't meet those deadlines. And, that also the other reason too is I think there have been some, I would call desperation filings, that people were filing in certain times when they just needed to file something to stay in status while they figured out another more solid type of application that they qualified for. And so those will also always get RFEs. And so I think that it's a combination of reasons, but that it just, from what I've seen, that's what I'm gleaning from the types of RFPs I see and from consultations I have with people who have received RFPs on their cases.
All right. Are certain types of cases slower than others right now? Which ones are they?
Well, like I would say, like I said before, in general, all cases are slower right now. But certainly any type of case like where there's a lot of evidence, those seem to be taking a long. EB1s used to be, which are a green card for people with extraordinary ability. The wait time for those seems to have gone up quite a bit compared to what it used to be. Waivers, of course, very, very, very slow. And in general, unfortunately, about every kind of case is slower right now.
Yeah.
And even family cases, I-130s for family cases are slower, especially it seems to me when the applicant is overseas and it's not part of an I-485 here. Those I-130s seem to be a lot slower than before.
Yeah. Now, recent reports indicate that the Trump administration is weighing a proposal that could require banks to collect citizenship information from account holders. Policy discussions surrounding financial disclosure and immigration-related data collection have generated questions within immigrant communities about privacy, compliance, and potential downstream impacts. Attorney Johnson, when immigrants hear about proposals that involve collecting citizenship information in financial institutions, how should they interpret these developments? And how would you advise immigrants to stay informed and properly understand whether such proposals could directly impact their immigration cases or status?
Well, okay, that's a kind of a two-part question, but yeah, I mean, although the financial collection of information, whenever you hear any kind of news like that, sometimes it's not necessarily new. Many banks, you already have to provide if you're not a U.S. citizen, you have to provide your passport. A lot of times, most banks seem to always require that already. And even U.S. citizens usually have to take their passport or birth certificate or social security card, a combination of things. So while some parts of that may be new, others people are kind of already used to. But I would say to know what you need to be worried about or not worried about, stick to reputable sources of information. Immigrationquestion.com has a newsletter, a weekly subscription you can subscribe to get emails of updates. There's other sites where articles are vetted by experienced attorneys and government websites. When you see news articles about a specific person's case, take it with a grain of salt because you don't know all the facts of their case as it compares to your case. And I would say if you're in doubt, just schedule a consultation with an attorney because that consultation could be the best money you ever spent to get peace of mind regarding your specific situation.
Yeah. Thank you to everyone who joined us for this special edition webinar. And thank you, Attorney Johnson, for sharing your knowledge and practical guidance with us today. You can always visit immigrationquestion.com to ask immigration-related questions, stay informed about policy updates, and register for upcoming live events. If you missed any part of today's discussion, the replay will be available soon on Spotify. Search Borderless Talk by immigrationquestion.com. We look forward to seeing you on Thursday at our next live session. Until then, stay informed, stay prepared, and stay connected. Bye-bye.